Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope that whenever and wherever you are when you listen to this recording, that you're having a wonderful night or day, and that you are learning how to communicate clearly with others, that you are always striving to be your best self that you possibly can be. I tried to ask somebody in a business just yesterday a question. I'm interested in being a part of this business and being a customer, not, actually have it as my business, but just be a customer. But it didn't make sense to me, a couple things I saw on the website. So I talked to, the little thing that comes up and you ask the questions. And something he said upset me, but he said, why don't you talk to one of our account managers? He has more knowledge than me. And so he gave me the number and I called the guy, and the guy just hemmed and hawed and refused to answer my question. And I'm like, it's a simple yes or no answer. I asked the question 5 or 6 different ways because I thought maybe there's a language barrier. Maybe he doesn't understand. I just don't understand what. Maybe I'm not saying it right, and I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. And he just hems and haws. And, well, we have a good company. Just be grateful. Stop asking so many questions. Whoa, red flag. So he then called me and said, what is your question? And I started to ask my question, and I was like, well, I was wondering about, and by the time I said the word about, he was already yelling at me. Ooh, red flag number 2. And interrupting me, red flag number 3. And then when he would give me more space to talk, then he started talking over me, red flag number 4. Horrible communication skills. So this guy might have all the knowledge in the world, but he's never going to get it out of his mouth because I hung up on him. Sorry. Boom, boom. I'm not gonna continue. How could I continue with somebody who interrupts? And I wanted to bring this up because do you have an interrupter in your life? And I don't mean the kick-ass amazing band, by the way, that was the opening act for Green Day's last tour. The Interrupters, they're amazing. Really good music. I love punk music and they're just super fun. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. When somebody interrupts you, how does it make you feel? It makes you feel so unheard, right? So that's the first thing. And the second thing, it makes you feel just so frustrated that your voice is not as important as their voice is to them, even though their opinion of you has nothing to do with reality. It's just what's in their head. Doesn't make you worth less as a human being because words are spewing out of their mouth over your own words. But it's just super poor form, right? So usually when someone interrupts you, they're disrespecting you. When they're talking over you, same thing. They're saying that they think that they're more important than you are. They're saying that your words don't matter. And also basically that you're dumb. You don't know what you're saying. So it's not even worth hearing what you're trying to say. It's just kind of it's their perception. Even though it has nothing to do with your reality. It never does. So there's only 2 cases that I can imagine that in which someone interrupts. you. One is that they have ADHD and they can't help themselves. Or, if they're on the spectrum, or, there might be like a cognitive dissonance there a little bit, and then the other way that somebody would interrupt you, and it's not a negative thing, it's when they're super, super excited. They have such great news they can't wait to tell you. Like a little tiny kid when, mommy, I found this flower for you. Like if you say, hey, can you take your shoes off? And they'll interrupt because the flower is so much more important because they're showing their love for you, So sometimes interruptions aren't always bad, but usually, most of the time, especially if it's an adult, children interrupt all the time because it's a skill that they haven't learned yet. I feel that sometimes when adults interrupt, it's a skill that they still haven't learned, actually. The art of conversation. Another reason why people interrupt is because of anxiety. They feel so much anxiety that they're scared that they won't be heard. So they talk over you, force themselves to be heard, or they will, their anxiety they'll be like afraid they're going to forget what they're about to say, or they're having a stream of consciousness flow and they're just like want to spew it out before they lose that train of thought. That thread of thought. And when I hear the words thread of thought, I think of Dumbledore bending over the pensieve, where he's taking, extracting the long silver filaments of thought that come out of his head and putting it in the swirling soup that is the thoughts of his life that he keeps in that big vat of water in the pensieve. If you've ever seen Harry Potter, you're going to know what I mean. That was like one of the most brilliant images I've ever seen in a movie, maybe. I don't know. It's just, as far as thoughts are concerned, it was just brilliant, But it was just very spiritual. But so I hope that when you have an interrupter in your life, that if it is abusive, that you don't put up with it. If they continuously call you, you can block them. Turn off their notifications and not deal. Only deal strictly through text, and only for like a few minutes a day if you have to talk to this person all the time. Writing emails might work as well. And if you are dealing with the interrupter that's abusive that you don't have to put up with, just move on, because you deserve to be respected, obviously. You deserve to be heard, obviously. And if the interrupter has OCD or ADHD, or they're on the spectrum, it's best if you just take a deep breath and allow them to talk. And my good, dear, wonderful friend who is recently departed, Dale Hess, God bless him and God rest his soul, he told me that when someone is all jangled up inside and they're talking loud, high-pitched, fast, and they start to interrupt you, the best thing he discovered is take a deep breath and just let them talk until there's no more talk. Just don't say a damn word. Just let them get it all out. He says usually people that are coming at you with that interrupting energy, they just have all this energy they need to get out. And he was always very sweet and very open about it. I was on calls with him with other people on the call because we were in business together for years, and it was amazing when people would be super upset. He would tell me before we get on the call with all the other people, he'd be like, okay, look, if someone starts to act like that, I want you to observe me. And I would. And I'm like, oh my God. He would just take a deep breath and go, mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. What else? Huh. Sure. Interesting. And he'd just kind of do that, or he'd be just dead silent. And the person would just talk themselves out so fast. If he would argue with them, it would prolong it. So if you're stuck with an interrupter in your life, just let them speak. Let them speak all the way to the end, even if it frustrates you and angers you. Because as soon as they're done, you can hang up the phone, take a deep breath and say, thank God that's over. Booyah. If they're in the room with you, you can just go, okay, well, I've got to go. Pick up your car keys and leave. Shout in the car if you must on the way to wherever you're going, whether it's driving around the block, yelling in your car, or, if you actually have somewhere to go. I mean, maybe as a pat on the back, go reward yourself, buy yourself, a nice yogurt smoothie or a coffee at Starbucks for putting up with their nonsense. But know that you are worthy of being heard, and you are worthy of being, of everything, basically. We're all equal on this earth because we're all created from the one will, and not one piece is better than another piece, or not one body part is better than another body part. You can't say, well, you know what, big toe, you really suck, but you know what, little pinky finger, you're the best body part I've got. It's completely illogical, right? So you can't say that with people, that one person's better than another, and you can't believe that about yourself when somebody interrupts you. Anyway, that's my personal thoughts, at least for today, on interruption, because this guy he kept trying to call me so he could purposely interrupt me. And I refused to take his call, and I wrote in a text message, interrupting others is a sign of disrespect. And that's all I put. And he kind of didn't respond to it for a while, and then he just wrote, okay. I was like, and then I said, answering my one question with a simple yes or no yesterday would have sufficed. But instead you came at me with saying that I don't know what I'm talking about, which that's why I'm asking the question. And you're saying that I need to just be grateful and be quiet and stop asking so many questions. It's no. I was sent to you because you have all the answers. I'm just trying to get the answers. And he's all, oh, well, what's your question? And I'd asked it 20 times already because he wouldn't, it was just ridiculous. And finally I reworded it. And that's the other thing. If you're asking something that's upsetting someone, they're not understanding you. That's the secret. They're just so they're going to talk over you. They're going to interrupt you. They're going to deflect every which way because they don't understand your words. So, and I finally reworded it. And then he started in with his BS, and he tried to call me to interrupt me again. And I declined the call, and I said no. And then I said, when I said, this is a simple yes or no question. We could have been done with this yesterday, but you didn't answer yes or no. And then that made him pause. Oh, okay, can you re-ask it again now? So I re-asked it again, reworded it to make it more logical for him in his language. His first language is German, so not his language, but in the way that his mind works, functions, thinks. And then he's like, oh, yeah, of course. Yes. Oh, good. Because for 2 days, I was really upset about an answer somebody else gave me. Now sent to you to clear it up. Instead, he just made it worse for 2 whole days. Made me distrust him, actually. Made me feel like this is very unpleasant interaction, and how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's someone I don't want to work with in the future. Not much, not at all, I committed to working with him for a couple months, but now I'm no. After that, I think I'm going to request somebody else if I still want to continue the company, or maybe it's over. And, communication is so important that you can literally make or break all your relationships. With your, from your neighbors to, your children, to your spouse, co-workers, parents, whatever. You can make or break relationships. And if you're in business and you have clients, the best thing you can do is just sit and let them talk till they're done talking. Have a stress ball under the desk and squeeze it 100 times. But don't try to argue. Just let them be. And they'll talk themselves out. And then at the end, you could say yes or no. And if you don't understand something, just say, can you rephrase that? Because I don't think I'm understanding the question. Life doesn't have to be hard, but people make it hard. It's hilarious to me how hard people make their lives. And when people say that they can't find a relationship or can't hold one together, and then they have that kind of interruptiness and the impatience. It's like, that's why you can't hold it together. It's exactly why you don't have a relationship, because you've worn people out and you've made them feel unheard and unloved and unworthy in your eyes. And they realize that your eyes are foggy. You have mental glaucoma. So bye. If you're going to have emotional cataracts, I'm not going to be around for that. Good luck. If you have actual glaucoma or cataracts, then I will stick around and try to heal you. But when it comes to the emotional stuff and the communication stuff and the mental jibber jabber that people put other people through, that's illogical and it's just destructive. It's when there's a lack of communication, it just becomes a very destructive force in a relationship. And when you're in business, that's literally death to your business. If the face of a company is somebody who does not contact well with others, they don't play fair or play right with others, and they get super offended and they have a lot of emotional issues, that's not a good face for the company. Company's not going to last, right? I was in a hotel as a guest with my kids in Sacramento, and this amazing, beautiful person, he just had a heart of gold, and he was like, helping us get a room in the hotel. And I thought, this is really odd, right? The guy met us in front of the hotel, took us to the room, talked to the people behind the desk, and did everything for us. And it was like, why are they bringing an outside agent in? This is really crazy. Like, I've never in my life seen this, right? And the hotel was run by people from another country. And I thought, well, maybe there's a language barrier, and that makes sense now. And they want to, since it's in the United States, they want people to, feel comfortable and be able to communicate, because communication is key, right, to all relationships, including business. So I was blown away at the sweetness and the high level of emotional intelligence this person had. I mean, to the point where he handed me his business card and he said, I know you're getting ready to go on travels. Keep in touch. I want to hear about everything, all your adventures. Sweet person. Lovely person. I still have his card 6 years later. And I remember this because 6 years later it still perplexes me. The guy who owned the hotel, after about 2 or 3 days, we were there for 2 weeks. We're waiting on, I don't know what, some kind of paperwork or something. And we just put all of our stuff in storage and didn't have a place to live. And we're waiting for our plane. And I'm like, we only have 2 weeks left, so let's just go get this cheap hotel. It had a pool, and it was pretty nice. But a lot of the people that were living there, we found out why it was so cheap is that they were people who had just gotten out of prison, and they were waiting to get into a halfway house, and they were kind of waiting for other people to move out of a local halfway house. And it was also for people that were had just gotten off of drugs, and they were coming out of a rehab and didn't have anywhere else to go. And then there was a little old lady who lost her apartment because her rent went up, and she was on a fixed income. So it was people that were super poor, like me at that moment. And, it was just that kind of situation. It was a weird situation. But so some of the people were super questionable. Other people were just poor but very sweet, Like a couple with a baby who had been evicted because the baby is crying all the time. And there was a noise clause in their thing. And, they'd been there for 3 years and they got pregnant. And so that was just the cause. The landlord didn't like babies, so stuff like that. It was like situations like that. While we were there for those couple weeks, we met a lot of people. And on the third day, I met the owner. And he was running like working the front desk, and he was helping people. And I was sitting at a couch, kind of reading a book. It was actually a very pleasant lobby. I think I was waiting for, I don't know what, pizza to be delivered or something. I don't know. Anyway, I watched him get in an argument with a couple of his staff people. I watched him get in an argument with a couple people that were trying to get a room. And then I saw him get so angry, he just yelled at somebody. And they just told him, well, F you, and walked out. And he's like, can you believe the nerve of some people? You know, I told him there's no room. And then they kept going on, well, I know there's a room. And there was no room. And he's just like, and then he takes his problems to me. And I'm like, I'm staying here. And I was just like, and I just kind of ignored him. Like, who the hell is this guy? After the first guy, it was so sweet. And then after about 2 or 3 more days went by, and the guy said to me, I know I'm terrible with people. I really hate interacting with people. I'm so shy, and I get so angry and so frustrated that I scare people away, and I'm ruining myself. I'm ruining my own business, and I shoot myself in the foot every time I open my mouth. And you saw me, and that's why I have, I think the guy's name was Jeff. He's like, this is why I have Jeff come and show people around. And that's why when the advertisement for the hotel, it says to call the number, and it's his phone number. And it's the service he provides me because he's so great with people. I know my own shortcomings, but I don't want to do bad in business. And I want people to have a pleasant stay, and my staff are all very nice people. It's just that I know I'm not a good person when it comes to communication. And I was like, okay, all right, I get that. So like, you're an introvert and you're kind of a curmudgeon and you hate dealing with people. I get that. So it's not the best, being in the hospitality industry might not have been a good choice. He's like, yeah, I recognize that, but it was the only choice I had at the time. I'm like, okay. So we had a conversation about it, and I thought that was so, but how great and insightful for somebody who knows what he's like. He knows himself very, very well. And he says, I'm working on it every day. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to improve who I am as a person and my communication skills. And I'm going to anger classes to not be angry. And he says, and besides that, I'm praying all the time. He goes, I'm a Muslim and I should not be this angry. Because in Islam, you're supposed to always let go of your anger. It's like it's a thing. And I'm like, well, I understand that because I converted to Islam, and yet I still have my anger issues sometimes. Not always. I'm usually pretty normal. But if someone crosses a line, I've got a short fuse when it comes to 2 or 3 things. Taxi drivers that tried to charge me 50 cents more and quickly shut off the meter to lie to me. That's one of my pet peeves. And I'm like, it's like before, as we're rolling to that last final stop in a taxi, I'm always checking the meter. I'm like, your meter said $1.35, so no, it's not $1.75. Sorry. If you want to call the police, I would love to discuss it with them. Okay, fine, it's $1.35. This is why I loved Lyft in the States. They pick you up and they drop you off, and the company is literally tracking the car and how fast it took, and they're only going to take money out of your bank account that you're off your debit card that you deserve, that person deserves to be paid. And then you rate them on a scale of 1 to 5, and if they were horrible to you, they no longer get to be a driver for the company. So it was, that was really cool. But here you got to negotiate, and it's a freaking minefield sometimes. But, for the most part, I'm super loving and patient. And then there's days it's just, if I'm feeling sick, just like anyone, I get my short temper. So I kind of related to this guy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm working on it as a Muslim now, as a new Muslim, trying to work on this calm, collected. It's been 6 years and I haven't changed that much. A little bit, but not much. Is it a core part of my personality that I'm sweet and loving until I'm not? I don't know. It's just, I don't turn on people out of nowhere. It's like someone's got to push my buttons a lot before I finally snap. But I don't know. You get me that point where I snap, it's gonna be a big snap. You better put on a coat because this cold snap's gonna really chill you. I think a lot of people are like that though, but it was funny. It was this weird thing I had in common with this guy though, but I'm like, yeah, I don't really deal well with people. I will tell them off in 2 seconds. I'm like, I get upset with people really fast. So I get that, but communication's key for all, not just business, but all relationships. And well, those are my words on my communication and emotional relationship words of wisdom for the day. Wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this, I hope that you're always striving to be the best you can be, because if we all have clear, concise communication, and we can bring about insights and clarity in others with our words, and then we allow other people to talk, and we don't end up hating people who interrupt us, that we start to understand maybe there's other issues going on. Usually there's anxiety in them. It's their own stuff. Has nothing to do with you. So have love and compassion, but be willing to walk away from somebody who consistently disrespects you. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Take it or leave it. Free advice is free. So, you didn't lose anything except 25 minutes. Hopefully I helped you there. Maybe I brought clarity and insight to you through something you may or may not be going through, or you might go through in the future, or you've already been through in the past. So there it is. Today on the scale of ascension symptoms, sass, we are at 99. So I don't know about you guys, but today I'm doing this on Saturday night. I was in bed. I've been in bed for 2 days. I'm not sick, but I'm not feeling good enough to be up and out. Just been feeling really lethargic, tired. I was mentally clear-ish today, but just, I know I keep getting this feeling that my body is lifting up off the bed and then comes back. I don't know what that is. It's very weird. It's like an energetic feeling. This is ascension symptoms. It's very weird. A lot of liquid coming out of my ears. I don't know what that is. I call it my liquid goo phase. It's not a lot, but it's like, ew, what's out of my ear? Ew, I gotta wash my ear now. What the heck? It's happened a couple times. I think I was abducted yesterday, so maybe that was it. They did something with my ears. It's weird. It's not a normal thing for me. This has happened 2 or 3 times in the past 6 months. Especially when the the Schumann resonance was really high. And when my tinnitus got to be really intense. So I don't know if you guys are also feeling that, but just in case. A lot of weird emotional stuff still today. Just kind of, it's clearing up though. Whatever it was for the last 2-3 days, where it had gotten really bad 2 or 3 days ago. Now it's clearing up. Now we're a little bit more okay, getting back to even keel, able to clear that fog, lift that energy, starting to see blue skies emotionally again. We're okay. We're going to be all right. But actually outside here all day long, I woke up in the morning, I had plans to leave, and it was gray and rainy and overcast, and the clouds were so dark, almost black, kind of that cobalt blue color all day long. It was misty and foggy in the morning, early morning. I woke up for a couple seconds and I saw it like we were shrouded. I was going to say surrounded and shrouded at the same time. We're shrouded in clouds. It was a cloud shroud. It was kind of cool, but also eerie, like the old movie The Fog, That's why I felt like it was so foggy out. It's not hardly ever foggy here, so it's weird. It's not like San Francisco where you love the fog. You wake up and you relish in it. It's just an amazing feeling to breathe in the fog. It's so crisp and wet and weird, especially if you're not used to it. And you go to San Francisco for the first time, it's rather shocking to get up early and breathe in that fog. About 2 or 3 in the afternoon usually burns off, but that's what it was today. It was all foggy, weird. They kind of matched how the moods have been for days. But it's okay, we're getting through it. Probably where you are, most of the people listening to this recording, according to my statistics anyway, are in places where it's extremely hot. So you might have like a different kind of angsty when you're sweaty and, you're like, man, I need a shower and put more deodorant on. And now I've got the mosquitoes and, I know what it's like. And I feel for you guys in the hot weather right now. This is August too. In the U.S., this is usually the hottest month. So I feel for you guys. So anyway, I'm going to read the Schumann Resonance right now. And then the Course in Miracles, there's 5 sentences I'll read to you from that today. All right. DisclosureNews.it, they say at 8:30 a.m. Today we're witnessing what appears to be the beginning of a significant phase of activity. It started at 2 a.m. UTC and is continuing. After a first peak at 29 Hertz frequency at 3:30 UTC, a much higher spike followed, reaching 68 Hertz at 4:15 UTC. Then for the evening report, they write, today the activity was concentrated in 6 hours from 2 to 8 UTC. The maximum peak was the one described above. In the last part of the trip reported, from 14 UTC, a constant started, but for now, light activity. All right, cool. So there's that. Now we're going to go around the world. I'm not going to read all of them today. I'm just going to go through the basics. The basics of how it ended up. How's that? I'm waiting for it to load, and let's see here. All right, wouldn't you know it, I got it all queued up, and there's an angel number at the midnight time, so I'm going to tell you the midnight time and then what it ended up to be. All right. So basically, oh, darn it. Oh, dagnabbit. I forgot what's the first one. You guys should know this too. All right. Okay. So California started at midnight at 145 Hertz frequency. Wow. That's crazy. And by 4 a.m., it was 144. So it just went down by 1. So that's huge. But you know what? 144, right? Do you guys catch that? 144,000? I mean, that's almost too perfect, right? Hofuf, Saudi Arabia, at midnight. They started at 13. There's my lucky number. And ended up at 0 by 4 a.m. And Lithuania. Last night at midnight, Lithuania was at 198 Hertz frequency on the Schumann Resonance. And at 4 a.m., they ended at 207. So they were going up pretty steady. Alberta, Canada, this is the one to watch, right? This is one that's been pretty interesting lately. This is the reason why I'm reading not just one reading, but 2. They started at midnight in Alberta, Canada at 333 Hertz frequency. I mean, that's just too perfect, right? Again. And they ended up 335 by 4 a.m. And then we go to Northland, New Zealand. And they started at midnight at 88. Here's another master number. 88 Hertz frequency at midnight. And they went down just by 187. They remained 88 for 3 hours, though. And then went down to 87. So only one little tiny tick. And last but not least, our happy sounding name, Hulului, South Africa, started at midnight at 258 Hertz frequency on the Schumann Resonance. And then they ended up, and it gets just intense, 311. I mean, that's something. That's crazy, right? So in Hulului, South Africa, they're having some massive changes go on. So again, the numbers down the line at 4 a.m. ended at 144, 0, 207, 335, 87, and 311. I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of it, but that's what it was. All right. In A Course in Miracles, we're on lesson 56, which, as you know, is still a review. And I'm just going to read the sentences twice from each. I'm going to try to give a different tone of voice in each time I read it, just to see if maybe you might glean different meanings. Okay, so I'm going to do my best here. All right. For the review of the following lessons, the first review sentence is from lesson 26. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Again, my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Lesson 27's thought is, above all else, I want to see. Above all else, I want to see. Lesson 28's thought is, above all else, I want to see differently. Above all else, I want to see differently. And for lesson 29, God is in everything I see. Again, God is in everything I see. Lesson 30's thought is, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Again, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. All right, I hope that reading it twice with different emphasis on different words somehow helps. I don't know if it will, but hopefully. All right, when we come back, I'm going to read from a book that is a series of letters written by Mark Twain. The book was compiled and published in the 60s. The editor was Bernard DeVoto. He found all these letters and put them together and created a book called Letters from the Earth. And it's in the public domain. So I'm going to read this to you guys a little bit today and maybe a little bit next time. We'll see. But Letters from the Earth. After this. If you're listening to this, you obviously like podcasts, and you probably like music too. Long walks on the beach, romantic dancing under the stars, and oh wait, we're not doing that right now. On Spotify, you can listen to all of that in one place for free, and you don't even need a premium account, which is cool. Free is always good. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, including your long romantic walks on the beach. Also, one thing I love about Spotify is that you can easily share what you're listening to with your friends via Spotify's integrations with the social platforms like Instagram. So that makes it really, really versatile. Just search for Metaphysical Soul Speak on the Spotify app or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. And follow me, of course, don't forget, so that you'll never again miss an episode of Metaphysical Soul Speak. Spotify is the world's leading music streaming service, and now it can be your go-to for podcasts too. Thank you guys so much for supporting Metaphysical Soul Speak on Spotify. Letters from the Earth is a book that was published of letters that Mark Twain had written between the years 1835 and 1910. And this book was published posthumously in the 1960s. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. 1939, sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, no, actually, yeah, okay, so the guy that put it together wanted to publish it, and in 1939, Clara Clemens, Samuel Clemens is Mark Twain's real name, and Clara said no, she didn't want his sarcastic, biting sense of humor, and his scathing remarks about religion and the church at the time, because when he wrote these letters, he's going through a really hard time. One of his daughters had just died. His wife had just died. He was beside himself with grief, and he wrote a series of letters to God. And he was so sarcastic, and Claire was worried that because that's not how he truly felt. It's just that how he felt during, 2 or 3 years, well, the 5 years from 1904 to 1909 was his difficult time, and it's what he was feeling at the time. But throughout his whole life, he didn't always reflect the same views. So, I mean, we all can relate to that, right? When we're kind of pissy about something for about a year or two. And then the rest of our lives were fine, and we didn't mean to be so biting and scathing and sarcastic. But this looked very interesting to me because it was about the tone of it is not what he normally was. But this was very controversial, and it did present a distorted view of his views at the moment. So in 1960 is when this was published, and Clara explained her change of heart in 1962, according to Wikipedia. She said, Mark Twain belonged to the world, and that public opinion had become more tolerant. So from 1939 to 1960, she said, no. And then in 1960, she said, okay, fine, let's do it. Because, maybe other people have hard times, right? He was deeply in debt at this time as well. So morality and religion, in his own biting, sarcastic wit and humor, is pretty much the tone of Letters from Earth. So anyway, this is a series of just essays or letters. The first letter, and I don't think we're going to get through them all today, but we're going to try our best to get through a big, huge chunk of them because it looks interesting. And I've never read them. So as I'm reading them, I'm discovering it as you are. So woo, do it together. We're on a journey together, and I love that. All right. The first letter is Satan's letter. So basically, Satan's on earth writing to God about being on earth, right? About his experience. So Satan's letter, noblest work of God. He writes, "This is a strange place, an extraordinary place, and interesting. There is nothing resembling it at home. The people are all insane. The other animals are insane. The earth is insane. Nature itself is insane. Man is a marvelous curiosity. When he is at his very, very best, he is a sort of low-grade, nickel-plated angel. At his worst, he is unspeakable, unimaginable, and first and last and all the time, he is a sarcasm. Yet he blandly and in all sincerity calls himself the, quote, noblest work of God, unquote. This is the truth I am telling you, and this is not a new idea with him, as he has talked about it through all the ages and believed it, and found nobody among all his race to laugh at it. Moreover, if I may put another strain upon you, he thinks he is the Creator's pet. He believes the Creator is proud of him, and he believes the Creator loves him, has a passion for him, sits up nights to admire him, yes, and watch over him and keep him out of trouble. He prays to him and he thinks he listens. Isn't that a quaint idea? Fills his prayers with crude and bald and florid flatteries of him and thinks he sits and purrs over these extravagancies and enjoys them. He prays for help and favor and protection every day and does it with hopefulness and confidence too, although no prayer of his has ever been answered. The daily affront, the daily defeat do not discourage him. He goes on praying just the same. There's something almost fine about this perseverance. I must put one more strain upon you. He thinks he is going to heaven. He has salaried teachers who tell him that. They also tell him there is a hell of everlasting fire and that he will go to it if he doesn't keep the commandments. What are commandments? They are a curiosity. I will tell you about them by and by. All right, this is weird, right? I didn't know that Mark Twain had even written this. And this might be a collection of letters from Satan to God. Writing from earth, like this place is crazy and this is what they think. So, I mean, I'm not saying that I agree with that because, yeah, I do pray and yes, my prayers have been answered. Sometimes the answer is no. Just like any good parent, God does know how to say no. You know, it's always for our own good and stuff. But I do believe this, and maybe I am insane. I don't know. All right, this next letter is rather long and maybe not be for little ears. Possibly. I don't know. I haven't read it yet. I did not pre-screen, but it is Mark Twain, and he can be very biting and funny, and, well, we'll see. Letter 2. Sexual intercourse. I have told you nothing about man that is not true. You must pardon me if I repeat that remark now and then in these letters. I want you to take seriously the things I am telling you, and I feel that if I were in your place and you in mine, I should need that reminder from time to time to keep my credulity from flagging. For there is nothing about man that is not strange to an immortal. He looks at nothing as we look at it. His sense of proportion is quite different from ours, and his sense of values is so widely divergent from ours that with all our large intellectual powers, it is not likely that even the most gifted among us would ever be quite able to understand it. For instance, take this sample. He has imagined a heaven and has left entirely out of it the supremest of all his delights, the one ecstasy that stands first and foremost in the heart of every individual of his race and of ours: sexual intercourse. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, I just added that part. It felt like a bum, bum, bum moment. Okay. It is as if a lost and perishing person in a roasting dessert should be told by a rescuer he might choose and have all longed for things but one, and he should elect to leave out water. His heaven is like himself, strange, interesting, astonishing, and grotesque. I give you my word, it has not a single feature in it that he actually values. It consists utterly and entirely of diversions, which he cares next to nothing about, here in the earth, yet is quite sure he will like them in heaven. Isn't it curious? Isn't it interesting? You must not think I am exaggerating, for it is not so. I will give you details. Most men do not sing, and most men cannot sing. Most men will not stay when others are singing, if it be continued more than 2 hours. Note that. Only about 2 men in 100 can play upon a musical instrument, and not 4 in 100 have any wish to learn how. Set that down. Many men pray, not many of them like to do it. A few pray long, the others make a shortcut. More men go to church than want to. To 49 men in 50, the Sabbath day is a dreary, dreary bore. Of all the men in a church on a Sunday, 2/3 are tired when the service is half over, and the rest before it is finished. The gladdest moment for all of them is when the preacher uplifts his hands for the benediction. You can hear the soft rustle of relief that sweeps the house, and you recognize that it is eloquent with gratitude. All nations look down upon all other nations. All nations dislike all other nations. All white nations despise all colored nations of whatever hue, and oppress them when they can. Oh, I don't want to say. There's a word here. I'm going to say a word I don't want to say. All right. So, white men will not associate with the word I don't want to say, nor marry them. Well, this is old, guys. This is like so old. This is not even true anymore. But this was his ideas of the day, so we're going to go with it. I'm not going to say any bad words, yeah? Okay. They will not allow them in their schools and churches. All the world hates the Jew and will not endure him except when he is rich. Wow. It's crazy, right? I don't agree with that, but, all right. I don't hate anyone. Anyway. It's still, some of these ideas are still floating around the world today, but I think the majority of the people don't feel this way anymore. Thank you, God. Okay, he says, I ask you to note all those particulars. Further, all sane people detest noise. Thank God we're off those other topics. All people, sane or insane, like to have variety in their life. Monotony quickly wearies them. Every man, according to the mental equipment that has fallen to his share, exercises his intellect constantly, ceaselessly, and this exercise makes up a vast and valued essential part of his life. The lowest intellect, like the highest, possesses a skill of some kind and takes a keen pleasure in testing it, proving it, perfecting it. The urchin, who is his comrade's superior in games, is as diligent and as enthusiastic in his practice as are the sculptor, the painter, the pianist, the mathematician, and the rest. Not one of them could be happy if his talent were put under an interdict interdict? I don't know. Interdict. Now then, you have the facts. You know what the human race enjoys and what it doesn't enjoy. It has invented a heaven out of its own head all by itself. Guess what it's like? In 1,500 eternities, you couldn't do it. The ablest mind known to you or me in 50 million eons couldn't do it. Very well, I will tell you about it. Number 1. First of all, I recall to your attention the extraordinary fact with which I began, to wit, that the human being, like the immortals, naturally places sexual intercourse far and away above all other joys. Yet he has left it out of heaven. Yet he has left it out of his heaven. The very thought of it excites him. Opportunity sets him wild. In this state, he will risk life, reputation, and everything, even his queer heaven itself, to make good that opportunity and ride it to the overwhelming climax. From youth to middle age, all men and women prize copulation above all other pleasures combined. Yet it is actually, as I have said, it is not in their heaven. Prayer takes its place. They prize it thus highly, yet like all their so-called boons, it is a poor thing. At its very best and longest, the act is brief beyond imagination. The imagination of an immortal, I mean. In the matter of repetition, the man is limited, quite beyond immortal conception. We who continue the act and its supremest ecstasies unbroken and without withdrawal for centuries will never be able to understand or adequately pity the awful poverty of these people in that rich gift which, possessed as we possess it, makes all other possessions trivial and not worth the trouble of invoicing. Number 2. In man's heaven, everybody sings. The man who did not sing on earth sings there. The man who could not sing on earth is able to do it there. The universal singing is not casual, not occasional, not relieved by intervals of quiet. It goes on all day long and every day, during a stretch of 12 hours, and everybody stays, where in the earth the place would be empty in 2 hours. The singing is of hymns alone. Nay, it is of one hymn alone. The words are always the same in number. They are only about a dozen. There is no rhyme. There is no poetry. Hosanna, 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 Lord God of Sabaoth. Ra, 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 sis, boom, ah. Number 3. Meantime, every person is playing on a harp. Those millions and millions, whereas not more than 20 in the 1,000 of them could play an instrument in the earth or ever wanted to. Consider the deafening hurricane of sound. Millions and millions of voices screaming at once, millions and millions of harps gritting their teeth at the same time. I ask you, is it hideous? Is it odious? Is it horrible? Consider further. It is a praise service, a service of compliment, flattery, of adulation. Do you ask who it is that is willing to endure this strange compliment, this insane compliment, and who not only endures it, but likes it, enjoys it, requires it, commands it? Hold your breath. It is God. This race is God, I mean. He sits on his throne, attended by his 24 elders, and 420, and some other dignitaries pertaining to his court, and looks out over his miles and miles of tempestuous worshippers, and smiles and purrs, and nods his satisfaction northward, eastward, southward. As quaint and knave a spectacle as has yet been imagined in this universe, I take it. It is easy to see that the inventor of the heavens did not originate the idea, but copied it from the show ceremonies of some sorry little sovereign state up back in the settlements of the Orient somewhere. I don't know what that means. Sorry about that if that's offensive. Not my words, it's Mark Twain's words. Or in this case, Satan's words, and he's evil, right? Supposedly, right? All sane white people hate noise, yet they have tranquilly accepted this kind of heaven. It's weird he mentions white. I don't know why. Without thinking, without reflection, without examination, and they actually want to go to it. Profoundly devout old gray-headed men put in a large part of their time dreaming of the happy day when they will lay down the cares of this life and enter into the joys of that place. Yet you can see how unreal it is to them and how little it takes a grip upon them as being fact, for they make no practical preparation for the great change. You never see them, any one of them, with a harp. You never hear one of them sing. As you have seen, that singular show is a service of praise, praised by hymn, praised by prostration. It takes the place of quote-unquote church. Now then, in the earth, these people cannot stand much church. An hour and a quarter is the limit, and they draw the line at once a week. That is to say, Sunday, 1 day in 7. And even then, they do not look forward to it with longing. And so, consider what their heaven provides for them. Quote-unquote church that lasts forever, and a Sabbath that has no end. They quickly weary of this brief hebdomadal Sabbath here, yet they long for that eternal one. They dream of it. They talk about it. They think they're going to enjoy it. With all their simple hearts, they think they're going to be happy in it. It is because they do not think at all. They only think they think, whereas they can't think. Not 2 human beings in 10,000 have anything to think with. And as to imagination, oh well, look at their heaven. They accept it, they approve it, they admire it. That gives you their intellectual measure. Number 4. The inventor of their heaven empties into it all the nations of the earth in one common jumble. All are on an equality absolute, no one of them ranking another. They have to be brothers. They have to mix together, pray together, harp together, hosanna together. And then whites and blah, 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 blah. Everybody, there's no distinction. Here in the earth, all nations hate each other, and every one of them hates the Jew. I hate that because I mean that he says that because I don't agree with that. No one hate anybody, okay? He says, yet every pious person adores that heaven and wants to get into it. He really does. And when he's in a holy rapture, he thinks that if he were only there, he would take all the populace to his heart and hug. And hug and hug and hug. He is a marvel, man is. I knew who invented him. So I don't know about that number 4. I'm just going to take a break from the book for a moment. I don't know about that number 4. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of hatred between certain people in certain nations towards other people, but it's not as much as it used to be. I mean, this kind of gives us an insight, does it not, to the way that people used to think, like in absolutes like that. And sure, there's people that are ignorant and they just hate everybody. And it's common for people to hate the country south of them. I've talked to people like in North Italy, and they go, "Oh, we don't like to associate people in South Italy." Someone told me that once. I mean, like 20, 30 years ago. Maybe it's not even the case anymore. But it blew my mind. I'm like, what? Like, is that true? And then I started asking other people. Oh, yeah, I know. There's always jokes or there's like racism against the people south of us. And it's like how weird is that? It's directional sometimes. And, maybe it's just people are bored and they just develop a hatred just because they're bored. Maybe they feel they couldn't develop a love without a hatred. I can't love you without hating him or her or them. I don't know. This part of the ideas kind of bug me. I didn't know it was in here, obviously. So I'm discovering it as you are. But I think that as we progress ascension-wise into the fifth dimension, that we are becoming more unified, and we are starting to love each other more and more. And the 144,000 times 2 times 3 times 12, I don't know how much of us there really are, but that's just a symbol. The number 144,000 doesn't mean that's only how many will get to the fifth dimension, because clearly quite a few more are getting in, right? Are going up, because we're done. We know we're one. And we know that skin is just skin, but our souls are all the same, right? The same, whatever, white light. It's, all colors of light mixed into one. So anyway, I'm sorry, that part bugged me a little bit, just because, but that is, he does have a point. People are warring over things that shouldn't really be warred over. War should never occur. People should love each other. And I think that's quite the point he was making, that people don't love each other, and that's why there's so many problems on Earth. What makes people think that we're all going to get along once we're away from here? That does sound like an insane idea, right? We should get along now. And then we will get along there and everywhere. Anyway, I'm gonna continue to read it, but I just had to take a quick break from these ideas for a moment and just, I don't know. He's being obviously very sarcastic, very angry about this kind of stuff where everybody hates everybody, or, I don't think it's as true as it used to be. And it might not have ever been. It might have been his perception, right? You're never upset for the reason you think, and nothing you see means anything, If you apply the lessons we've gone over in A Course in Miracles, then you get a little bit clearer picture beyond the insanity that is man. All right, so we're going to go back into this now with number 5. Every man in the earth possesses some share of intellect, large or small, and be it large or be it small, he takes pride in it. Also, his heart swells at the mentioning of the names of the majestic intellectual chiefs of his race, and he loves the tale of their splendid achievements. For he is of their blood, and in honoring themselves, they have honored him. Lo, what the mind of man can do! He cries and calls the roll of the illustrious of all ages, and points to the imperishable literatures they have given to the world, and the mechanical wonders they have invented, and the glories wherewith they have clothed science and the arts. And to them he uncovers as to kings, and gives to them the profoundest homage, and the sincerest his exultant heart can furnish, thus exalting intellect above all things else in the world, and enthroning it there under the arching skies in a supremacy unapproachable. And then he contrived to heaven that hasn't a rag of intellectuality in it anywhere. It is odd. Is it odd? Is it curious? Is it puzzling? It is exactly as I have said, incredible as it may sound. This sincere adorer of intellect and prodigal rewarder of its mighty services here in the earth has invented a religion and a heaven which pay no compliments to intellect, offer it no distinctions, fling it no largesse. In fact, never even mention it. By this time you all have noticed that the human being's heaven has been thought out and constructed upon an absolute definite plan. And that this plan is that it shall contain in labored detail each and every imaginable thing that is repulsive to man, and not a single thing he likes. Very well. The further we proceed, the more will this curious fact be apparent. Make a note of it. In man's heaven there are no exercises for the intellect, nothing for it to live upon. It would rot there in a year. Rot and stink, and at that stage become holy. A blessed thing, for only the holy can stand the joys of that bedlam. Okay, we're going to the next one. Next letter. All right. Letter 3. Forbidden fruit. You have noticed that the human being is a curiosity. In times past, he has had and worn out and flung away hundreds and hundreds of religions. Today he has hundreds and hundreds of religions and launches not fewer than 3 new ones every year. I could enlarge that number and still be within the facts. One of his principal religions is called the Christian. A sketch of it will interest you. It sets forth in detail in a book containing 2 million words, called the Old and New Testaments. Also, it has another name, the Word of God. For the Christian thinks every word of it was dictated by God, the one I have been speaking of. It is of full interest. It has noble poetry in it, and some clever fables, and some blood-drenched history, and some good morals, and a wealth of obscenity, and upwards of 1,000 lies. The Bible is built mainly out of the fragments of older Bibles that had their day and crumbled to ruin, so it noticeably lacks in originality necessarily. Its 3 or 4 most imposing and impressive events all happened in earlier Bibles. All its best precepts and rules of conduct came also from those Bibles. There are only 2 new things in it, hell, for one, and that singular heaven I have told you about. What shall we do? If we believe with these people that their God invented these cruel things, we slander him. If we believe that these people invented them themselves, we slander them. It is an unpleasant dilemma in either case, for neither of these parties has done us any harm. For the sake of tranquility, let us take a side. Let us join forces with the people and put the whole ungracious burden upon him, heaven, hell, Bible, and all. It does not seem right. It does not seem fair. And yet, when you consider that heaven, how crushingly charged it is with everything that is repulsive to a human being, how can we believe a human being invented it? And when I come to tell you about hell, the stain will be greater still. And you will be likely to say, no, a man would not provide that place for either himself or anybody else. He simply couldn't. That innocent Bible tells us about the creation. Of what? The universe? Yes, the universe. In 6 days. God did it. He did not call it the universe. That name is modern. His whole attention was upon this world. He constructed it in 5 days, and then it took him only 1 day to make 20 million suns and 80 million planets. What were they for, according to this idea? To furnish light for this little toy world. That was his whole purpose. He had no other. One of the 20 million suns, the smallest one, was to light it in the daytime. The rest were to help one of the universe's countless moons modify the darkness of its nights. It is quite manifest that he believed his fresh-made skies were diamond-sown with those myriads of twinkling stars the moment his first day's sun sank below the horizon. Whereas, in fact, not a single star winked in that black vault until 3 years and a half after that memorable week's formidable industries had been completed. Then one star appeared all solitary and alone and began to blink. 3 years later, another one appeared. The two blinked together for more than 4 years before a third joined them. At the end of the first 100 years, there were not yet 25 stars twinkling in the wide wastes of those gloomy skies. At the end of 1,000 years, not enough stars were yet visible to make a show. At the end of 1,000,000 years, only half of the present array had sent their light over the telescopic frontiers, and it took another 1,000,000 for the rest to follow suit, as the vulgar phrase goes. There being at that time no telescope, their advent was not observed. For 300 years now, the Christian astronomer has known that his deity didn't make the stars in those tremendous 6 days, but the Christian astronomer does not enlarge upon that detail. Neither does the priest. In his book, God is eloquent in his praises of his mighty works and calls them by the largest names he can find, thus indicating that he has a strong and just admiration of magnitudes. Yet he made those millions of prodigious suns to light this wee little orb, instead of appointing this orb's little sun to dance attendance upon them. He mentions Arcturus in his book. You remember Arcturus. We went there once. It is one of the Earth's night lamps. That giant globe, which is 50,000 times as large as the Earth's sun, and compares with it as a melon compares with a cathedral. However, the Sunday school still teaches the child that Arcturus was created to help light this earth, and that the child grows up and continues to believe it long after he's found out that the probabilities are against it being so. According to the book and its servants, the universe is only 6,000 years old. It is only within the last 100 years that studious, inquiring minds have found out that it is nearer to 100 million. During the 6 days, God created man and the other animals. He made a man and a woman and placed them in a pleasant garden along with the other creatures. They all lived together in harmony and contentment and blooming youth for some time. Then trouble came. God had warned the man and the woman that they must not eat of the fruit of a certain tree. And he added a most strange remark. He said that if they ate of it, they should surely die. Strange, for the reason that inasmuch as they had never seen a sample death, they could not possibly have known what that meant. Neither would he nor any other god have been able to make those ignorant children understand what was meant without furnishing a sample. The mere word could have no meaning for them, any more than it would have for an infant of days. Presently, a serpent sought them out privately and came to them walking upright, which was the ways of serpents in those days. The serpent said the forbidden fruit would store their vacant minds with knowledge. So they ate it, which was quite natural, for man is made so that he eagerly wants to know. Whereas the priest, like God, whose imitator and representative he has made it his business from the beginning to keep him from knowing any useful thing. Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, and at once a great light streamed into their dim heads. They had acquired knowledge. What knowledge? Useful knowledge? No, Merely knowledge that there was such a thing as good and such a thing as evil, and how to do evil. They couldn't do it before. Therefore, all their acts up until this time had been without stain, without blame, without offense. But now they could do evil and suffer for it. Now they had acquired what the church calls an invaluable possession, the moral sense. That sense which differentiates man from the beast and sets him above the beast, instead of below the beast, where one would suppose his proper place would be, since he is always foul-minded and guilty, and the beast always clean-minded and innocent. It is like valuing a watch that must go wrong above a watch that can't. The church still prizes the moral sense as man's noblest asset today, although the church knows God had a distinctly poor opinion of it and did what he could in his clumsy way to keep his happy children of the garden from acquiring it. Very well. Adam and Eve now knew what evil was and how to do it. They knew how to do various kinds of wrong things, and among them one principal one. The one God had his mind on principally. The one God had his mind on principally. That one was the art and mystery of sexual intercourse. To them it was a magnificent discovery, and they stopped idling around and turned their entire attention to it. Poor exultant young things. In the midst of one of these celebrations, they heard God walking among the bushes, which was an afternoon custom of his, and they were smitten with fright. Why? Because they were naked. They had not known it before. They hadn't minded it before, and well, neither had God. In that memorable moment, immodesty was born, and some people have valued it ever since, though it would certainly puzzle them to explain why. Adam and Eve entered the world naked and unashamed, naked and pure-minded, and no descendant of theirs has ever entered it otherwise. And all have entered it naked, unashamed, and clean in mind. They have entered it modest. They had to acquire immodesty and the soiled mind. There was no other way to get it. A Christian mother's first duty is to soil her child's mind, and she does not neglect it. Her lad grows up to be a missionary and goes to the innocent savage and the civilized Japanese and soils their minds. Again, not my words, so if it's offensive to you, it's Mark Twain being sarcastic. Like 100 years ago. 110 years ago. Whereupon they adopt immodesty, they conceal their bodies, they stop bathing naked together. The convention miscalled modesty has no standard and cannot have one, because it's opposed to nature and reason and is therefore an artificiality and subject to anybody's whim, anybody's diseased caprice. And so in India, the refined lady covers her face and breasts and leaves her legs naked from the hips down, while the refined European lady covers her legs and exposes her face and her breasts. In lands inhabited by the innocent savage, the refined European lady soon gets used to full-grown native stark nakedness and ceases to be offended by it. A highly cultivated French count and countess, unrelated to each other, who are marooned in their night clothes by shipwreck upon an uninhabited island in the 18th century, were soon naked, also ashamed, for a week. After that, their nakedness did not trouble them, and soon they ceased to think about it. You have never seen a person with clothes on. Oh well, you haven't lost anything. To proceed with the biblical curiosities, naturally you will think the threat to punish Adam and Eve for disobeying was, of course, not carried out, since they did not create themselves, nor their natures, nor their impulses, nor their weaknesses, and hence were not properly subject to anyone's commands, and not responsible to anybody for their acts. It will surprise you to know that the threat was carried out. Adam and Eve were punished, and that crime finds apologists unto this day. The sentence of death was executed. Get it? Executed. As you perceive, the only person responsible for the couple's offense escaped. And not only escaped, but became the executioner of the innocent. In your country and mine, we should have the privilege of making fun of this kind of morality, but it would be unkind to do it here. Many of these people have the reasoning faculty, but no one uses it in religious matters. The best minds will tell you that when a man has begotten a child, he is morally bound to tenderly care for it, protect it from hurt, shield it from disease, clothe it, feed it, bear with its waywardness, lay no hand upon it save in kindness, and for its own good, and never in any case inflict upon it a wanton cruelty. God's treatment of his earthly children every day and every night is the exact opposite of all that. Yet those best minds warmly justify these crimes, condone them, excuse them, and indignantly refuse to regard them as crimes at all when he commits them. Your country and mine is an interesting one, but there's nothing there that is half so interesting as the human mind. And by the way, when he says your country and mine, this is the devil talking to God. So, devil's country and God's country is what he means. I hope that was made clear in the beginning. If not, I want to clear that up right now. All right, we're almost done with this letter. Let's see. Very well. God banished Adam and Eve from the garden and eventually assassinated them. All for disobeying a command which he had no right to utter. But he did not stop there, as you will see. He has one code of morals for himself and quite another for his children. He requires his children to deal justly and gently with offenders, and forgive them 77 times. Whereas he deals neither justly nor gently with anyone, and he did not forgive the ignorant and thoughtless first pair of juveniles, even their first small offense, and say, you may go free this time and I will give you another chance. On the contrary, he elected to punish their children all through the ages to the end of time for a trifling offense committed by others before they were born. He is punishing them yet. In mild ways? No, in atrocious ones. You would not suppose that this kind of being gets many compliments. Undeceive yourself. The world calls him the all-just, all-righteous, the all-good, the all-merciful, the all-forgiving, the all-truthful, the all-loving, the source of all morality. These sarcasms are uttered daily all over the world, but not as conscious sarcasms. No, they're meant seriously, and they are uttered without a smile. All right, guys. If you liked this and want me to continue reading, I want you to write to me, metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and I want you to let me know if you want to continue if you want to read it on your own, or if you want me to continue. I have to think about this for a week if I want to continue with this. It's going to be on and on and on about this stuff, but it's very interesting ideas and thoughts, right? It's just, he's trying to look at religion in a different light and maybe cast a jaundiced eye towards some of the ideas that have been perpetuated. And some of this stuff I think is insane as well. I can't disagree with these thoughts, right? He's putting sanity into what was created by an insane world. Why would you create stories of a God that's completely unjust and then call him the most just? Create some of the lowest horrors and then call him the most high. I'm not saying that actual God is this way. I'm saying that this is the God of the Bible that people talk about. And if you're Christian, I'm not reading this to offend you, obviously. I wanted to know what was in Mark Twain's mind during his darkest years. his sarcastic sense of humor. He's always usually very funny. This is a little bit funny. It's not terribly funny, so I might not continue next week with it. But if you guys want to hear the rest, you want me to read it to you, please quickly get the word out. Write to me, metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, because I'm not sure I'm going to continue with it. I might read it on my own, though. But some of these things I do agree with. Like, yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Like, one thing I don't understand is that Christians say you have to keep all the 10 commandments, remember them, and keep them holy. That's well and good. Don't kill people. It makes sense. Don't be envious of others. That makes sense. It all makes sense. You know, honor your mom and dad. Sure. All right. You know, don't have any other gods. Just have one. You know, it takes the confusion out of things, right? Don't worship false idols. That's obviously very sensible. Sensible. But then when Jesus comes along, it seems like people worship him. But is that just completely going against what Jesus himself said? And as it goes completely against what God said. This is a mad world that we live in. It is insane. Jesus himself came back through the lady who did the Course in Miracles to tell us that we're crazy. We're insane. We have to unravel our brains. Unravel these bizarre teachings that we were taught as kids. And that we're still being taught as adults. And we still put ourselves in the place of going to these places of worship. Like, have you ever had anybody who is constantly saying to you, "You're the best. I love you. You're great. You're amazing." And that's so sweet. Oh my gosh. You're so sweet. Thank you. And then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And after like a few days, if you're super patient, after like a few months, but hearing the same words over and over and over again all day long, it gets really annoying. It's like, okay, listen, you kiss ass. Can you please stop telling me this stuff? You know, just be real, be relaxed, be yourself. Love me, but don't constantly praise me. It's weird. It's icky. It feels weird. It's wrong, right? It feels wrong, even though it's a sweet thing. It's just too much sugar will rot your teeth and give you diabetes. Same thing with words that are too saccharinely sweet. It's too much. So why would God be such an egotistical narcissist maniac in the sky waiting for us to constantly bow down and worship and praise him? I don't think that's true. I don't think any of this stuff is true. You know, that's in the Bible. Like, as far as those kinds of ideas, they're wrong, I think. It's my opinion only, and, you know, maybe you think God wants you to die and stare upon his face with a smile like an idiot for the rest of eternity. But I think God is much more practical, much more personable, much more loving than all of those ideas suggest. I think that God meets us where we stand with our ideas and our thoughts. I have a dialogue with God. God is real. God is living. You can have a real relationship with God. And I'm not talking in the Christian sense where people go, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior? No, I don't mean that. And yes, I do. I do have a personal relationship with him. I have conversations with both of them and with Mother Mary, and they talk to me, and I've, through this show, channeled them for you guys. And it's not a special, it's a skill I've developed, but it's not special in a way that you can't develop it because you can. You just have to listen quietly, patiently, listen for the still, small voice that speaks to you through your heart. That's it. Sit in silence, sit in nature. Sit with meditation music if you must. Light a candle or incense if you must. You don't have to. I mean, you can hear the voice of God walking through Disneyland or Universal Studios or, you know, walking over a bridge, over the ocean, or anywhere in the world. You can hear the voice of God while you're laying in your bed. You can hear the voice of God while you're eating breakfast with your kids. Anywhere and everywhere you are, God is, because you are a piece, a spark of the great divine. Do I think heaven is a way that there's been perpetuated? This myth has been perpetuated? No. I have had dreams where I was in heaven, and I've listened literally to the Dead Poets Society. They called it that. They laughed about it. There were poets that were here on earth that were famous, and when I was there, I think it was Yeats was reciting a poem, but I just sat quietly and I didn't say a word until the session was over, and all these people had recited their new poems that they wrote after they died. And this guy turned to me, and I think it was Yeats, and he said, "Hey, who are you?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I should be here, and I don't want to tell you." And he goes, "Oh, no, nonsense. On the contrary, we're all one. We all love each other here. But we want to hear your ideas." See, because we're all still individuals there. But we have poetry. We still have rock and roll in heaven. We have everything we have here and more. We don't have to pay money for anything either. We can still make love in heaven too. And I think that's a point that Mark Twain is getting across. If you guys really, really, really want me to go through this more and more, I will. But you got to write me and tell me yes. Otherwise, I'll find something new to do next week. I think that should be fair enough. Because I don't know if we want to hear over and over and over again stuff about the Bible, right? That's not what the show's about. But I just thought it was an interesting and strange diversion for this week. Since Saturdays are the days that I usually read old texts, poetry, new thought ideas. This is a new thought idea. And I got this from the newthoughtlibrary.com. So you could go read it for free, again, in the public domain. I will never read anything from not the public domain unless it's a little excerpt. And obviously I'm always going to cite the source. Not a plagiarist. Hey, you want to hear a word I just invented? Plagiarism. Dad joke. Okay, not mine. Not my joke. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. I hope that none of these things offended you. It wasn't my intention to offend anybody by reading Mark Twain's words. He's someone that I do respect. I don't always agree with him, but I do respect him. So, anyway, I love you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this strange journey into the mind of a man who was grieving. A comedian who is grieving. Interesting, yeah. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about that for now. I hope that tomorrow brings you everything your heart's desire and more. But now I'm signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy fifth dimension. Until next time, peace. Chances are you've heard of CBD oil, but maybe you're a little afraid it might make you a little high or super drowsy. Possibly you're not going to pass mandatory drug testing at work. Am I right? Well, I found an amazing company. I'm including the link in this episode's description. Okay. This is derived from only the hemp plant. It does not contain THC, which is the factor in marijuana that makes you high. This CBD oil has been known to reverse aging, help you through weight loss issues. You will literally lose weight on our products if you want. Also reverses hair loss. It also helps you with things like insomnia, anxiety, pain in your muscles and joints, and it gives you benefits throughout your body with its high quality antioxidants. We even have a vape. Would you like to try the blueberry cheesecake? I know I would. I mean, there's so much danger with vaping these days, but not when it is only CBD oil. That's right. You could vape not only anytime you want, because it's not going to make you high, but it's also going to be healthy for you. How's that? Pretty cool, right? Well, go ahead and look in my episode description for my link. And, well, start using your CBD oil today. If you're interested in the business end of it, it's absolutely free to join. It's absolutely free every month, actually. I have never seen a business like this in all my life. So you can start, well, using your CBD oil, and you can start a brand new side hustle for yourself. Hey, as in, Hey Yoga Shaman approves of this message. I love you guys, and well, here's to your health. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.